Again? Oh, wow, excellent. All right. So we are going to keep this brief to make sure that we have lots of time for discussion, but we'll give a bit of an overview of what Grand Challenges Canada is and touch on some of the lessons that we've had to open it up for discussion. So we launched in 2010 with anchor funding from the Government of Canada, really to deliver on priorities in development innovation. We are a platform for impact using innovation, social, business, scientific and technological innovations that we seed and transition to scale to drive impact at scale. We're designed to leverage in expertise and resources from the private sector, the public sector, the philanthropic sector. We deploy grant and non-grant financing, so loans and convertible debt. We endeavor to use the best approaches that we can to manage the knowledge that we have, the risks that we face, and to ensure affordable access at the end of the day. So in our 9+ years, we've supported over 1,200 innovations in over 85 countries, and they're on track to save 1.6 million lives and improve up to 50 million lives by year 2030.
So perhaps the best way to understand what this impact might look like is to tell you the story of one of our innovators. So Dada, who is the Ugandan man on the right there, is someone who has a story of how to make it easier for babies to breathe in the first golden minute of life. So the golden minute is those first 60 seconds that when a baby is born, that they need to be able to use their lungs, no longer getting oxygen for their brain through their mom's, through the direct cord to their mom. They've got to actually take those first breaths themselves. And while this sounds like a very natural thing for a human baby to do, it's something that lots of babies require help in doing at first. And unfortunately, still 1.8 million stillbirths and newborns die every year as a result of newborn asphyxiation. So Dada is a pediatrician, and he's also a master trainer for birth attendants and teaching them how to do newborn resuscitation. But he was pretty frustrated by the fact that the traditional way of training birth attendants was pretty ineffective and also wore off very quickly. So he found himself retraining the same people over and over again, and they weren't actually having the impact that they were looking for. He came to one of our events for Saving Lives at Birth, which is a grand challenge for development that we've done with many different partners, including USAID and the Gates Foundation, Norway, and DFID. And he met Chris, who's an engineer based out of Mass General Hospital. And together they dreamed up this concept of how they could actually address this problem. And what they came up with was called the AIR device. And the AIR device actually went on to win at a subsequent round of funding, a seed award. So they really kicked off their ability to develop this and go forward. So the device itself, this augmented infant resuscitator, as you can see, it's a device that clips onto a bag and mask and actually can give feedback on 3 different parts of newborn resuscitation to the person as they're doing it, with either it looks green, as they're all lit up green there, or they go yellow or red when any of those things are off. So it means that the person who's doing the resuscitation is actually getting feedback in the moment that they're doing it, and they can keep learning and reinforce their learning while they're actually delivering this life-saving intervention. With this augmented infant resuscitator, they are 50% faster at getting to an effective breath for the newborn, and it lasts 50% longer. So these are the kinds of huge advances that we're looking for. In order to sustainably scale this, we introduced the AIR team with Philips, the multinational. And last year they developed a license agreement. And so now the AIR device is being manufactured and distributed by Philips, something that a small Ugandan pediatrician wasn't likely to do, and even Mass General Hospital would have trouble doing. And so now this has the chance to be saving over 100,000 kids' lives in the next 10 years at a very conservative estimate.
So that's one example in our portfolio to give you a sense, and what we do along the way, give them funding, but also the supports, the connections, the partnerships that are needed to get to scale. So in the material that we sent before, we highlighted a few of the lessons that we thought you might be interested in learning about. I'll just go through them briefly here. We've got lots of lessons around our experiment with results-based programming, from creating and investing in the development impact bond for kangaroo mother care, which is actually the first development impact bond where local government has played an outcomes funder role. Lots of lessons, good and bad, from that experience. Another area that we've learned a lot about is about measuring outcomes. The tricky thing about innovation is that the impact is in the future. You're doing a lot of stuff now and you won't necessarily see the impact for years to come. So how do we talk about the impact that's possible? If you think about in business where you model out revenues that you expect for a business to have in the future to give you a sense, discounted for failure and all the things that can happen, we do that based on lives saved and improved, to help us make the best decisions, the best investment decisions, and to watch out for what needs to happen to get to those targets. Another big area of learning is about risk. Can't really have innovation without risk taking. We've been doing risk mitigation since day one, but it wasn't until about 2 years ago where we started talking about risk appetite. What is our real appetite for failure? And different types of risk. Innovation risks we're comfortable with, and our funders are comfortable with. One innovation failing, as long as we learn a lot, and as long as the platform as a whole is successful. But there's other types of risks that we face when we're supporting small and medium enterprises in difficult settings, trying to reach the bottom of the pyramid. Fiduciary risks around use of funds, how they document their funds, as an example that we've been grappling with. And then this bucket of lessons about how we've learned and iterated. By being a nimble platform, we every quarter are looking at what worked, what didn't work, and adapting them. So a few examples of that is learning where a grand challenge is really best suited. And we've learned that it's really in greenfield areas. We have a failure we can talk about if you're interested, that was required for us to learn that. We've really learned about how to transition the innovations to scale, and that it's not a one-size-fits-all. They're all different, they need different things, and that took us some time to figure out. A third area is really thinking about the holistic approach that's needed. The funds are critical, there's no question, but there's so much more that's needed to get an innovation from idea. Ideas are somewhat easy. It's actually the execution to actually have that impact and all the support systems that you need around the edges to actually have the impact you want. I'm conscious of time, but we did get this fabulous letter from one of our innovators over the weekend, and I'll just read a few excerpts. It says, GCC's innovator-centered approach is radically different. They give us what is needed for sustained impact. We have engaged with multiple funders and collaborators over the years, but we'd like to go on record to assert that GCC's respectful engagement and innovator empowerment ecosystem is unparalleled and game-changing. We believe their approach will result in lasting impact. So we get those kinds of results by our innovator-centered approach. We're out of time.
We're out of time, but I'm just going to highlight a few things as we started very closely because of the Government of Canada. We also see it part of our mandate to be sharing lessons with the Government of Canada. And so we'd be very interested to explore, this seems like a logical group of people to explore it with, as to how better to systemize the learning back and forth. Also, we've got a lot of ideas about the ability or the kinds of collaborative advantages that the government has, that us as an outside of government platform, we have other things we can bring to the table, but there's critical things we cannot act on. And things like procurement and how we can actually be looking at mainstreaming the innovations that are working, that do have the evidence that they're actually creating better value for money. How can those become part of mainstreamed programs? Because that's actually where we're going to get the greatest bang for the buck that's been invested in innovation. And then finally, we definitely see the talent that sits at Grand Challenges Canada as one of our greatest assets, but we're also very aware of the huge talent base that exists within the government. And so we would be very interested in exploring ideas for secondments or talent sharing with the folks around the room and other. We've got lots we could talk about, but we're going to actually look forward to hearing what you would like to hear and to have an open dialogue. Thank you.